What's up?
We got 2 lectures of project from scratch. There we go. All right, that's my cue. All right, let's do this. We're 6 minutes in already, so let's. All right, so this lecture and Wednesday's lecture. Oh, first of all, fill out your course evals. This lecture, you're at 77%. I just checked. I didn't update the Piazza post, but you're at 77%. So we're almost at 200. It's looking pretty likely that we're going to make it there, at least for this section.
We're not even at the second.
So this lecture and next Wednesdays, we're going to do a project from scratch. We have the full schedule figured out at this point. Next Monday will be the LO4 quiz review. Next Friday will be genetic algorithm. And today and next Wednesday will be project from scratch. We are going to turn it into 2 lectures. So we'll spend two lectures doing project from scratch. And this will be pretty open-ended. I have a vague idea of what I want to do. And I have the topics that we want to cover. We want to get Git, GUIs, setting up the project structure, all that kind of good stuff. So,
Hey Benjamin, let's go.
and that'll easily take up 2 lectures. Even if we get through all those topics today, hell, maybe we'll just build another project or add more features or something like that. When we have this results for this week's quiz and interview before your lab next week, I've been pretty clear, very clear with the TAs that you need those results back, that they need to get them to you ASAP. So before your next lab.
Exactly.
If you don't have them by your next lab, you know 100% I'm very mad at TAs and probably having some choice words with them. All right, so a project from scratch. We're going to go to File, New, Project. That's how it begins. So we're going to create a brand new project, and you'll see all these options on the side. If we want to start a Scala project, so I'm going to choose Scala. And you have several options for like the base layout of the project. For my taste, I like doing an idea project. It's just like a base project. It just gives you a source directory and that's about it. SBT is also very popular. For Scala projects, probably more popular, maybe even better to do an SBT project. It just gives you a different directory structure and it's made for SBT files layout instead of pom.xml with Maven. Idea is kind of an open canvas, and then I slap pom.xml on it. So we're going to create an idea project. If you create an SBT, you'll see what I mean. There's like 2 different directory structures, and you got to go like 4 directories deep to be able to do anything. I don't know. It's just, I don't like when things start off complex. And we need a project idea. In my mind, like all I can think of is tic-tac-toe. So by default, unless somebody has a better idea, like right now, I should have said this while you were getting it set up so you could think about something. I plan on just building tic-tac-toe. It's not super exciting, but it'll get us all of the things that we need to talk about. Unless in the next 2 seconds somebody has a good idea. Because I couldn't think make Elton. Yes, we might need a 3rd lecture for that one. So we can get all the things that we got. It's not super exciting, but hey, it lets me talk about the things I want to talk about.
Oh, he's going to teach you GUI.
All right, so brand new project. We're going to close this other one. And when you start a new project, you get a source folder, and that's it. Yeah, that's LO4 lab. If you need the second chance lab, you have to build Elden Ring. You get an idea directory. You've seen this before, but this is all IDE settings. It's all auto-generated. Personally, I never go into this directory. It's all just settings and configuration for IntelliJ. This IML, same thing. This is just settings for IntelliJ. That's all auto-generated. And then the source folder is where we're going to put all of our code. So before we even start writing code, we're going to need, if we need any external libraries, so if we need any external libraries, that's why we use this pom.xml. It is the one time where I'm just going to cut and paste some stuff. I'm going to grab this pom.xml. This is from the course website. I give this sample pom. from the course website. The first time we needed an external library, which was ScalaTest. I give you this POM so you can just grab it and copy it into your directory. Now, I do want to talk about what this is, so don't worry, I am going to discuss this. But what this POM is this top part is somewhat boilerplate. The version of POM that you're using, 4.0.0, same thing here, the version of the POM file that I'm using. The group or company or whatever that is building this project, I just did edu-buffalo.csc because whatever. And then the name of this project, which I'm just calling CSE 116 because I stole this from the course website. I can change this to CSE 116 tic-tac-toe. Will be fine. But I can choose whatever I want for that, whatever the name of the project is. And then the version number for the project. This is a pre-release, so I like to start with 001 for that. And then specifying the version of the JDK. This I never needed before, but this solves some very specific problems for this semester of specifying that, hey, use JDK 15. This is a JDK 15 project. So all that is basically boilerplate. POM.xml is specific to Java-based what's the way to say this? JVM projects. So anything that compiles to Java bytecode and runs on the JVM, POM is the POM.xml is going to work with that. POM is actually a way to set up, not Maven, a way to set up. No, it is Maven. A way to set up Maven with your project. So Maven is the build tool that we're using for our project. Now, the reason we want to set up the POM.xml in Maven is this next part. By the way, there are a lot of uses for POM and Maven, way beyond what we're doing here. It is a full build tool, so it describes how to build your project. But what we're using it for in 116 is strictly for the dependencies. So these are all external libraries that aren't included with Scala that we want to use in our project. And I'm actually going to delete quite a few of these. We'll trim this down a bit. These we won't need for today. The one on the POM on the website, I just put every library that we'll ever use or might use or have used in the past for 116, so we don't need most of them. But since GUIs were called for, we do need this open Javafx, which has several dependencies. This is the reason why I cut and paste this, because I'll forget one or three of these if I try to remember them. But all these open Javafx, open JavaFX libraries, that's going to be our GUI library. And then we have one more, and this one. And then we're going to have one more ScalaFX, which is going to be a Scala wrapper around the Java library. And this is something we can do in any language that compiles down to Java bytecode and runs on the JVM. We can actually mix the code. So we're actually using a Java library in our Scala program because this compiled library, all these compiled libraries, they compile down to Java bytecode. Who cares that it came from Java or Scala or whatever? It's Java bytecode and we can use it. And then we're going to use this Scala wrapper so we can get some Scala-specific niceties with our library to be able to use our GUI library, which is JavaFX. And then one more dependency, the one we've been using all semester, ScalaTest, to be able to do testing. I probably won't do testing in this example because we've been doing testing all semester. Like, you get it at this point. I don't need to show you another example, but I'll leave it in here just for I don't know, whatever. And to find these dependencies, I have the links to each one of them here. But to find these dependencies, like if you want to build your own project and you want to do something that Scala doesn't do, that none of the libraries we've ever used in 116 do, what you want to do is go to Maven Central. and then search for whatever you want, or just in Betray Jesse. What was I searching? And then search like, I don't know, machine learning. Spark Project ML gives you all kinds of versions and everything. Let's take the latest one, and then it'll give you that POM stuff to cut and paste. In fact, as soon as I click on that, it says copy to clipboard. It expects you to just cut and paste this stuff. So if I wanted this dependency, I would grab that from Maven Central and paste it here. I pasted it in the wrong spot. You gotta paste it in the right spot. You gotta paste it before the end of your dependencies. And then I have that library available in my project. So this is a really nice tool to be able to use external libraries. Just plop the dependency right in your pom.xml, and then you'll be able to use it in your project, but not quite yet. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I want to get out of here. We're done with the internet. We can go full screen here. How do we know when we need pom.xml versus import? You need both of them. So now let's start building our project. I'm gonna get an error like right away, but let's start building this. Directory structure was called for. Tick tack toe. I can do this. So we don't want to ever put code in our source directory directly. We never want to put code here. If I do, so say I put a Scala class here, there's no package declaration. This is what we call in what we call the default package, which is no package at all. It's just in the source folder directly. That's not something we want to do. We want to name our packages, and then when I create a file in here, it's going to be in package tic-tac-toe, matching my directory structure. And that's what we want. We want to organize this stuff in packages. The problem with putting things in the default package is if any other developer, like some library you import, also uses the default package, you're going to have name conflicts pretty quickly. In fact, if any of these libraries has a package named tic-tac-toe and a class matching one of my class names, I'm going to have a name conflict. If I have tic-tac-toe.gui or whatever, and somebody else says tic-tac-toe.gui, I'm in trouble. And you just exacerbate those issues if you put things in the default package. So we usually don't want to use the default package. Now there's another way I want to separate things. I want to separate things into, I'll be cheeky and call it view. If you look at the Homework 2 code, I use what's called the model view controller architecture pattern. And that's a way to separate your code into what's going to be the GUI. This view should only have one class for our purposes. The GUI and the actual code that does the stuff, which I'll just name it a class tic-tac-toe. So I want to separate the code that's actually doing the things with how the user is interacting with that code. In Homework 2, I go one step further and create a controller, which is how the user is sending inputs to the code, and the view is strictly just displaying the state of the game, or the code, or the program, app, whatever you want to call it, to the user. I'm going to mix, actually let me just change this because it's going to bug me. Refactor, rename. Let's rename this, just call it GUI. Because it's going to be the view and the controller. So let's get rid of the naming convention, actually. Just game. So this will be the game logic, and then the GUI is how we're going to access that game. And we're ready to use our library. And Tara, I'm getting to the question. I'll give you a better answer in a minute here. Other than just both. The answer is both, but I want to explain why. And I have my laptop over here, so if open to some example code from the examples repo. in project 2. So if you see me looking over here, that means I forgot what to type for these GUIs. I haven't written a GUI in a while, so I might have to cheat a little bit. So the GUI is going to extend what's called Javafx app, which is from our external dependencies. It's from ScalaFx, which uses Javafx. But I get an error here. Can't find it. It's in my POM, but we never ran the POM. We never installed those dependencies. So it's not enough just to slap your POM in there. And if you noticed it, when I added this POM, there was a notification in the bottom corner here that said, hey, it looks like you're adding a POM. You want me to figure that out for you? And I just closed it because I wanted to actually show how to do this instead of just having the IDE do it for me. So what we want to do is look over here for something called Maven. Maven is the software that's going to read the POM and then do what it says, do whatever we put in the POM. I don't have it here, so what we want to do is click this magnifying glass. And by the way, when you clone my repos for the homeworks, it just finds the POM and figures this out. IntelliJ's pretty good at that these days. But if you're doing it manually like this, sometimes you have to do all the steps. So I'm going to search for Maven and do Add Maven Projects. Select my POM. And now I get my Maven in the sidebar. And now, it looks like that worked. I always hit this anyway. Or download sources and documentation. Oh, I did that too fast. Download sources and documentation. So I have all the documentation for all the libraries I'm going to use. But it looks like it picked that up. Now if I do this again, I have access to this library. I have access to ScalaFx, and I want to import from the ScalaFx package, application subpackage, the Javafx app. Object. It has to be an object, right? Oh, come on, take me there. A trait. Okay. And now we have access to it. So the question, do we need it in our POM or do we need to import it? Both. And you can't import it unless it's in your POM and you've ran Maven. So once you've ran Maven to download all these dependencies, now all these dependencies are downloaded and linked to my project. Now I'm allowed to import them. Without setting up the POM and running Maven, you cannot import this. It'll just give you an error like it did before. I could have manually typed out this whole import before running Maven, and it would have just said, I don't know what ScalaFx is. I've never heard of this package before. Just nothing works. And now we're ready to build a GUI. Now this object has the Javafx app trait apparently has a whole bunch of variables, state variables in it, and we're going to set those variables to whatever we want. So there's a variable, the most important variable called the state. This is what's going to define all of the stuff of the GUI. So the stage, we're going to set equal to a new primary stage. And we're going to use this syntax a lot. We're creating a new primary stage. We don't have any constructor parameters, and then we're going to use braces right away. This is what's called initialization code. This is one of the reasons why I don't talk about GUIs in the class proper anymore. There's so many little idiosyncrasies like this, just different syntax we haven't seen before. So we're going to use this initialization code. If you can do this for any object you create, whenever you create a new object, you can put these braces and put some initialization code. The scope of this code is within the object that's being created. So this is a reference to the primary stage that's being created. And this lets me set any state variables that I want. So it's a way to have a constructor that takes no parameters or minimal parameters, whatever you want, but also have a lot of state variables with default values that are going to be able to be overridden, not technically overridden, not like inheritance way, but set based on the code in the initialization. So a few, well, since I had this. So there's a few things that we want. Title is going to be what's on the, I don't even know what it's called, the top bar of the window, tic-tac-toe, and this dot scene, which is going to be all of the stuff. Come on. New scene. Oh, I had this right. New scene. Why aren't you imported for me? Come on. Import class. And whenever you have a choice, so there are Javafx and Scalafx versions of a lot of these classes. When, yeah, I can see you. What's up, Epic Slayer 6969? Nice. So I have these two options, Javafx and Scalafx. I almost always want to use the ScalaFX version since I'm using Scala. Yeah, for what it's worth. When we get to events, then we're going to want to use not the Scala. For some reason, it just doesn't work if you use the Scala versions. And then this dot content equals a list of all of the content. So this is our very first GUI that we built from scratch. I'm going to run this thing. If all goes well, I should see a GUI that says tic-tac-toe at the top and doesn't have anything on it. So tic-tac-toe and nothing. So we built our first GUI. This is the absolute minimal example that you need to be able to make a GUI. Alright, so the way I want to set this up, I was thinking about the design a little bit at least, is to have 9 buttons on this GUI, and then we can click the buttons to set an X or an O on that button. So since I need 9 buttons, I'm going to create a button class so I can just say new, 9 times. And I'm going to extend a button. I'm going to extend button. Not game button. Why would I want game button to extend game button? I'm going to make sure I get the ScalaFX version. Oh my goodness. Hey, pup. I'm in the middle of a lecture. You want to say hi? Okay, go away. So I'm going to extend the ScalaFX button, and I'm going to use the same idea here. To set the things that I want. I'm going to set min width. I suppose I should do this dot, just to be clear. This dot min width, let's make them pretty big. This dot min height, 120. This dot text, we'll set to the empty string. This dot style, this one I really have to cheat on. Dash fx dash font colon. Let's make it pretty big. Arial. And then we'll eventually do on action. Arial, you want a different font? We can do a different font. Let's just set this equal to null for now. We'll do on action in a bit. So now we can create a bunch of buttons. New game button.
What?
How do I want to do this? List that. I forget the syntax for that. Let's do an array. New array of game button dot oh man, I forget how to do this at all.
Wait, why?
Bell buttons equals array of game button, array of, let's just do it this way so we can be done with it. There's a better way to do this, but I'm blanking on it right now. So I'm just going to do this crap. Why did I miss my parens on this? So I'm going to create a 9x9 grid of all my game buttons. And I also want to arrange these buttons on the game. This one I have to cheat a little bit too. So we're going to use what's called a grid pane. A grid pane for this. And add all these buttons. Buttons, oh come on. Buttons of 0. Multiple cursor thing like BSC. I'm not sure what you mean by multiple cursor. Grid pane. No, I'm doing this all wrong. This is initializer code as well. And I want to call add. In the initializer code, I'm going to call a grid pane method, the add method. I'm going to add the thing that I want, and then the location that I want it. So I'm going to add this one at location 0, 0. And why am I getting an error on add? Can I resolve add? It definitely exists. Why am I getting an error there? Okay, something to do with my game button.
Just hit up the game now. Go home. I'm about to speed run this 191.
191?
Apps, right?
Yeah, it's not chill.
Not proofs.
But it's also a quiz too.
Let's do Saturday.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
I think I make it consistent. Homework is doing 2 weeks.
Oh, is it because I use...
Quiz every
Because I'm an
Saturday.
idiot.
Yeah.
I was using the wrong syntax. I'm thinking of any other language.
So it's like
parentheses instead of braces, or instead of brackets in Scala. And then let's just add all these buttons. There's a better way to do this too, I know, but for the sake of
She agrees.
Yeah, like TAs don't do that to us. Like there's some in our last one.
getting this done,
Like those middle ones?
just gonna cut and paste 9 times.
Yeah, those ones with the proofs. You can read the tweet alone. I think it's
8, 0, 1. Let's go in row major order. We'll do rows first. I don't I forget if it's row major. Column index. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 1.
Oh yeah, sorry.
1, 2,
I'll fix that.
2, 2. And let's, just to make sure that this is working, let's put an X here. And we're ready to run this thing again. We should see a 3x3 thing of 9 X's. All his buttons. Hey, alright. That's a good size. We can make it a little bigger, I guess. Let's go with 42. Let's see how our O's look.
There's 2 lectures.
Fine. And let's add one more thing here. Oh, it's going to be a pain to add it to the top, isn't it? I'll add it to the bottom. I want to add some way to display messages to the users so that they can see like whose turn it is, or if somebody won or something. So let's do I don't know, message area of type text field. Why am I calling it a field? Message. I'll just call it messages. New text field. What do I even need for my text field? I guess the font. And this can be way smaller. This text can equal, we'll initialize it as welcome to tic-tac-toe. Then we're going to add this to the bottom here. Messages 3, 0. And then we're going to add extra parameters here. We don't want this just to be one box. We're going to have it span multiple columns. I want this to span 3 columns in 1 row. So I'm going to add these 2 extra optional parameters, which should have initial values. Oh, this is Java. This is Java where you can have overloaded methods. I'm not going to bother looking at that. But we should have this laid out the way we want it. If not, we'll fix it. Whoa, definitely not. 0, 3. Hey, all right. So we have a way to display messages to the user as well. And we have our GUI set up. That's a GUI. That's your first GUI tutorial. Potentially. I mean, maybe you had another one. Your first Scala one, almost for sure. So we have our GUI. So just to recap, we created a game button class, which is going to specify the size of the button, the font of the button, the initial text, which let's change this back to 0, and then what happens when the button is pressed, which we haven't implemented yet. The GUI is going to create 9 of those buttons, arrange them in a grid style, so we have a 3x3 grid. Then I'm also going to add a text field below those buttons to be able to display messages to the user. How are we feeling about that so far? All right. No, I don't know how I'm designing this yet, just so you know. But we want our tic-tac-toe game. And I wanted to find the API. Looking good. All right. Thanks, Marty.
I wonder if there's zero. Still talking.
And we wanted to find all of the behavior that this thing has. So I'm just going to think up like what methods I want to call on this game. So, and this is a general software engineering thing, is that we want to keep the logic of our game separate from the display of our game. So this, we shouldn't be changing this code very much anymore, at least not for functionality. This is just displaying what we need to display, and then we're going to call methods of the tic-tac-toe class to get the information that we need. And this tic-tac-toe class is going to do all of the things. So tic-tac-toe is going to tell us what message to display. We're just going to return a string. Is that giving me an error? What, oh, we need equal signs and stuff.
We wrote it.
We're going to need a button pressed. So I think the way I want to do this is take the index of the button that was pressed. So if I take the index, then use that 0 through 8 to figure out where my buttons are, take that as an int, capital I. I've been switching languages too much lately. And this will return unit. So that'll do something when a button is pressed. Do I even need anything else? I think that's all I need. I think that's my whole API. Buttons are pressed. That's the only thing a user can do is press buttons. And then I need to display things to the user. Yeah, okay. The API is done. Now, for my game button, I'm going to index these 0, 1, 2. And by the way, I'm making this up as I go along if you can't tell. This is, I think it's more natural and more educational if you see me kind of stumble through something. So I think I like this way to do it. It's not my favorite way, but you know, time permitting. We're already going to have to continue this on next Wednesday for sure. But I like this way of doing it. It's not terrible. And then have this take the index, take its own index as an int, and then this on action, what I want to do is create a new class. I'll call it button action, I guess. Which is going to extend action event. Right? Let me just make sure. Event handler of action event. I'm glad I checked that. Event handler of action event. So it takes a type parameter. And I want to make sure I get the right one. So this is a common name, so it's in a lot of different packages. I want my Javafx stuff, and this is the warning I was given earlier. For whatever reason, you need to use the Javafx versions directly when we're handling events for any event handler imports. I don't know why. I just know the first time I did GUIs like this, it took me hours to figure that out, and it sucked. Trying to figure out why the hell that wasn't working. How easy is it to change the default look of the buttons, shading, coloring, animation? I don't think it's that hard. I just haven't done it. Like I wouldn't be surprised if there's like background, equals new background. Let's see if it gives me constructor parameters. Like I'm sure it's not that hard. It's just something I haven't. I'm usually into the technical aspects and stuff. And yeah, I think there's CSS, like it's not exactly CSS, but CSS style stuff like this. Like that, I'm using very minimal of what I can be doing. Does the logic of looking for a win condition occur in the GUI or in tic-tac-toe? That'll occur in tic-tac-toe. So once we have a win condition, button pressed won't do anything anymore, which we could set up as the state pattern. Like this is begging for the state pattern: X's turn, O's turn, win condition, new game. I won't set up the state pattern for this though, in the interest of time. And then the message to display will change to like X wins the game, O wins the game. That's what's going on in my head. That's what I'm thinking of here. But the win condition would be checked in tic-tac-toe. So we're going to extend event handler of action event, and then this action on action is going to be called. Well, let me just implement this first. Once you extend this, you need a handle method. This handle method is going to be called whenever the button that this is attached to is pressed. So whenever the button is pressed, this will be called. And I need a few things here. I'm going to need to forward that index here. And I actually need an instance of the game. Tic-tac-toe. Oh, just import it for me. And we're going to say game.button pressed index. So whenever a button is pressed, we're going to tell the game that the button with that index has been pressed. Here we're going to create new instances of that button listener. Button action, I guess. Button action, index, and game. And I have to update this because I didn't realize that I'm going to need an instance of my game. Tic-tac-toe. And over here we need to create tic-tac-toe equals new tic-tac-toe. And then we need to pass this game to each one of these. So they all have a reference to the game. So the game will know whenever a button was pressed. I'm gonna need, oh, we only got 1 minute here.
You want like all different.
Can we do this one? Let's at least get to this one. Add event filter. This I definitely don't remember off the top of my head. Mouse event. Mouse clicked. Do I have to do that?
Xbox. The console.
Mouse event. This dot. Oh, come on. Messages. that text equals game dot message to display. So whenever the mouse button is pressed, whenever the mouse is clicked, I want to update what's going on here? I want to update the displayed message. Well, I mean, we're out of time anyway, but yeah, we'll pick this up next Friday. We should be able to. I thought we'd get a lot farther in one lecture, to be honest. But we'll pick up on this next Wednesday. Just get it working. I don't know why. I really would like this part to work though.
I mean, you definitely can. Oh. On the phone.
Whenever it's events, it's got to be Java or else it don't work. No file.
Yes, we're going to wait until Monday. Yeah, you're not.
Just yell at the screen. Yell at the screen. Jesse!
Bar.
He's gonna keep going. He's not even gonna restart for next
time.
class. He's just stuck in a loop. He's too far.
Good enough? Alright, take it easy.
Have a nice game, good.
Then this is. I'm over time already, so.
Yeah.
But just so we have something to run at the end here.
Well, I can see.
Will we be able to access this code? Yeah, when we get to Wednesday, I'll be doing the Git stuff, and I'll share this on GitHub. But we have the index of the button that was pressed, and then the rest is building the logic of this game. And that much is working. Yeah, we'll definitely pick this up. We'll definitely pick this up on Wednesday. I think we can finish it on Wednesday, share it on GitHub, get everything working, win conditions and all that.